Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we are taking a look at the Holy Paladin hero talents, and we're just going to dive into them. I'm not going to go over every single individual talent. I'm just going to talk about like my opinion. I played with both, how I think they're feeling right now, and just kind of like a general overview of both. So let's start with Herald of the Sun. It's the more interesting one to me. I think it's the more fun one to play around. I don't say it's more innovative, but to me, it just felt better when I played it. So let's talk about Herald of the Sun first. So the way it's going to work is you're going to have these Dawnlight charges that you have to play around. And I say they're charges, not really charges. They activate off two spells, your Holy Prism or your Barrier of Faith. And basically the whole idea behind this is you're going to be spreading Dawnlights to all your targets. And when a target has Dawnlight on them, they're going to do two things. They're going to radiate damage, and they're also going to radiate healing. So the whole idea is to spread out as many Dawnlights as you can and get sort of this pulsing AoE healing damage kind of going out in between your group, and each Dawnlight's going to kind of help each other out. And of course, the more you have out, the stronger you're going to feel. So the more interesting talent to me is Eternal Flame, because this has been a problem with Holy Paladin for many seasons now, is our spenders not feeling super impactful. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to take a look at our 4-set bonus this season, but our 4-set bonus is actually looking to buff our spenders. So Eternal Flame is a new spender for us, so it will scale from our set bonus, which is really nice. And it costs 3 holy power, and it replaces our Word of Glory. So overall, when using Eternal Flame, you're going to put this dot on a target for 20 seconds, and I think it's actually longer than that. And when I was testing, it was like 30 seconds. So basically what's happening is you're putting a dot on a target, you're getting the initial Word of Glory healing, and you're also getting a dot put on the target, or a hot heal over time effect, which is really nice. And I say it's really nice because it feels stronger than a baseline Word of Glory. This really helps our single target healing, not only for the initial burst healing, but also just keeping hots on your targets is going to make healing as a Holy Paladin overall feel less bursty. So one thing you can also see as a personal at the bottom of this tooltip, healing is increased by 25% when cast on yourself. So that's really nice as well. Obviously, the most important part of being a healer in any sort of group is just staying alive. If you die, it's typically a wipe. So really good to see that as well. Now, everything else in this tree, I'm not really going to go over. I will go over, obviously, the bottom node here. That's really cool. But everything else is just kind of passive buffs to your Dawnlight, to your Holy Shocks, to your General Critical Strike. So nothing too crazy going on in any sort of these talents here in the middle of the tree. I will say there are a couple decent ones, right? Morningstar is going to give you this stacking buff for your next Dawnlight. It's going to stack up to 10 times and cap out at 50%. It's going to buff your next Dawnlight by 50%. So that's really nice. And then I also thought Lingering Radiance was pretty cool as well. So Dawnlight is going to leave an Eternal Flame for 12 seconds on allies, or a Greater Judgment on enemies when it expires or is extended. So this is going to be just a general buff to our Dawnlight, which is really nice. And then we also have Solar Grace. So your haste is increased by 3% for 12 seconds each time you apply Dawnlight. Multiple stacks may overlap. So this is just going to further incentivize us to spread out as many of those Dawnlights as we possibly can. So then we also have Sun's Avatar, which is really cool here. Basically, the way it works is whenever you pop your wings, you're going to be linked to all your Dawnlights with this sort of beam of light. And any ally or enemy that passes through that beam gets healed or damaged, depending if they're an ally or an enemy. And another thing that's really cool about this is when you use your wings, it's going to automatically apply Dawnlight to your allies. So you don't have to, worry about if Dawnlight is up or not. Your wings is going to apply the Dawnlight for you. And then not only is it applying that Dawnlight, it's a buff Dawnlight. So these Dawnlights last 25% longer than just a normal Dawnlight. Okay, that's pretty much it for Herald of the Sun. You're spreading out Dawnlights, you're spreading out these Eternal Flames, and it kind of works almost like, it's weird to say this, but it kind of feels like a Restoration Druid a little bit. you just have, because not only do you have Eternal Flame and Dawnlight, you also have your Glimmer, right? So you have a ton of different hots going out. So it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. Let's go ahead and jump into Lightsmith. So Lightsmith is going to be a little bit different, and it's going to kind of play more as almost like an augmentation evoker slash priest, and it kind of revolves more around buffs rather than, you know, big flashy raw healing, radiant AoE healing, such as Herald of the Sun. I don't like Lightsmith as much. It just felt weird to me. I'm not saying it's not strong or anything. It just, I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it as much. I do not see this tree scaling super well in like raid environments because it's limited to your holy ornaments. So let's go ahead and read this. So, dang, I don't know if I want to read all this, but while wielding a holy bulwark, you gain an absorb shield for 15 seconds. Basically, you get 2 charges here, and one is a shield and one is a weapon. And you can pass either the shield or the weapon to an ally and basically buff them based on, you know, if it's a shield or a weapon. They each have their own different effect. So the weapon does damage or healing, and then the shield does, I think it gives you like an absorb shield. So this will be something you kind of need to track, right? Are you giving the shield to somebody, or are you giving the weapon to somebody, right? You don't want to be giving the weapon to somebody who needs the shield more, or, you know, vice versa. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. It has 2 charges. It's on a 1-minute recharge, and it kind of feels like a power infusion. And the reason I say that is due to solidarity here. So if you bestow an ornament upon an ally, you also gain its benefits. Very similar to a priest in power infusion, right? You put PI on somebody, the priest gets it as well. So it's like a 2-in-1. So if you do enjoy that sort of support playstyle, you play in a very coordinated group, you have a combust that you're playing around or something like that, and you're gonna funnel all your damage into that one specific person, this could be a fun spec. I do think Lightsmith is a little bit more experimental. We are seeing Blizzard kind of go in this direction of more support style healers, right? We've seen it with Aug Evoker. Now it looks like it's kind of coming over into Pally. I think this is going to be more of an experimental tree, but you know, we'll see what ends up happening with it. Outside of that, nothing really crazy going on in the middle of the tree. It's really all just going to be geared towards your holy ornaments, trying to reduce the cooldown on it, trying to buff the power of it. So everything here is pretty passive in the middle of the tree. At the bottom, we do have Blessing of the Forge, just to read it out here. Avenging Wrath summons an additional sacred weapon, and during Avenging Wrath, your sacred weapon cast spells on your target echoes the effects of your holy power abilities. So it kind of sounds like to me, I don't know if you guys remember, Blood Decay used to have a spell called Dancing Rune Weapon, and that rune weapon would kind of mimic its abilities. Kind of looks like what they're doing here, right? You're going to spawn a sacred weapon. It's going to mimic your holy power abilities, but only, of course, during your wings. So overall, I think these are 2 very interesting hero talent trees. I don't think they really address the core issues with Holy Paladin, which I will make a separate video on that. But I do think they're both very interesting trees. I do personally prefer Herald of the Sun. I just think it's more interesting. I'm not saying it's stronger. It's just more fun to play around. It's going to be very difficult depending on how much damage the Holy Artements does. If Holy Artements does a lot of damage, it's going to be hard to compete with that, because that's typically where the meta goes, is it's funneled into these classes like Aug Evoker or Disc Priest with PI, funneling all that damage into one specific character and doing a big trash pull and just nuking it down. That's typically where the meta goes. So Lightsmith could actually be the move if you're in a coordinated group, but I don't think it's the most fun. I had more fun when I played around Herald of the Sun, so we'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I do have some socials down in the description of the video. If you guys want to check those out, feel free to. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. We'll see you on the next one.